So thanks for your patience. We're doing a lot more prep work for today than we normally do. A lot of times we get to actually do most of our prep work ahead of time. We've done some prep work ahead of time today. I know I've been doing some dough work for a couple of days. Spencer's been doing some dough work for a couple of days, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Suzanne did a lot of her stuff ahead of time. She likes to get it all done when she can. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So as everybody should know, today we're doing pizza. So we're going to go through a few recipes here. Some of you were nice enough to bring some stuff in, so at the end we'll ask you guys to come up and share any information that you might want to share about your dishes. So we're going to go through ours. So as a reminder, we couldn't do this without the support of the Friends of the Library, so we want to give a big thank you to them. Remember, they run the bookstore on Tuesday through Saturday mornings, so you can always stop out there, pick up some nice cheap books. You can also just become a member, and what is it, a $5 annual membership fee? Yep. So thank you guys very much for that. They give us the means to go out and buy the produce and materials that we need to put on the show. So I'm going to start off this afternoon, or this morning. Oh, I guess it is still morning, yes. I'm going to start off this morning. On page 4, my contribution today was focaccia. So I was on vacation a few years ago, went to a gourmet pizza place and was really excited to see what gourmet pizza was like, because I'm just used to the Domino's, Pizza Hut kind of thing that we have here in America. I was overseas, so I wanted to see what they did. And to be honest, the food was good, but I was a little disappointed. It wasn't pizza. Just because you put toppings on a flat piece of dough does not make it pizza in my mind. So, but the food was good, and I can't complain about that. So it did make me start thinking, though, I've grown up on what we here in America call pizza. I grew up in the Midwest, so I didn't even have the benefit of seeing the Italian side on the East Coast that some of you may have grown up with. So my idea of pizza might be a little bit different from somebody who came from New York. So it was nice to just get exposed to something that somebody else called pizza that I wouldn't even really have called pizza. So for today, I decided to continue with that, and I made focaccia. Technically, we cannot call it pizza because it's not the kind of pizza that you and I have grown up with. However, it is a nice substitute for pizza, especially if you have anybody who's lactose intolerant or chooses to be a vegetarian or vegan. So in this particular recipe, you'll see it's mostly just flour, yeast, water, and the big contributing factor is the olive oil. So instead of having that nice fat content that you get in the cheese, we're going to be using olive oil. Technically a little bit healthier than cheese, but you're still going to get a lot of calories. It's still going to be really rich. So don't tell yourself, oh, I'm on a diet and it's okay because I'm just having olive oil. You're still getting the same amount of calories. So it is completely vegan. There is no animal products in here. I've done 4 different toppings with, I should go on with the dough first. The dough does take quite a bit of prep work. You can just do this in one evening and have it ready for the next day. So I like to let my dough sit in the fridge for a lot longer. It gives the yeast more chance to develop, but it's doing it at a much slower pace because of the cool temperature in the refrigerator. So I will mix it up. It will be quite wet for most dough. Anybody who's made bread dough knows that the drier the dough is, the easier it is to handle. The wetter the dough is, it's much harder to handle. So this dough is so wet you couldn't even knead it. It would just turn to mush in your hands. But that's okay. Because it's so wet, there's enough moisture in the flour and enough moisture content that the 2 elements that make up the gluten can move around in the dough without you actually having to manually do it by hand or in a mixer machine. So while it's sitting in the fridge, the gluten is actually starting to develop on its own, just because the dough is so wet. So what I'll do is I'll mix it together, just mix it by hand. If you have a mixer like a KitchenAid, you can also do it in a KitchenAid or something like that. Pour it into a bowl that has a lot of oil in it already. I don't mix the oil in right away because I don't want the oil to interfere with the ability of the gluten to form inside the dough. So I'll pour it into the bowl, drizzle a little bit of oil on top, let it sit in the fridge for about half an hour, and then I'll add a little bit more oil, and at this point I'll just start to hand mix the oil into the dough. I'm still not kneading it. My hands are covered with oil so the dough's not sticking to my fingers too bad. I've got lots of oil in the dough now, and I'll just mix it up a little bit, put it back in the fridge, let it set another half hour, And I'll do that 2 or 3 times until the dough is cooled down. Mostly the reason I mix it in the first half hour is because the outer part of the dough will start to cool in the fridge, but the interior of the dough will stay warm. And that will allow the yeast to start to activate inside the middle of the dough when I don't want it to activate yet. So by hand mixing it a couple of times during those first half-hour increments, it will kind of redistribute the temperature of the dough and cool everything a lot faster, so I don't have to worry about the dough starting to rise before it's ready. So once I've done that, I'll do that for maybe 2 or 3 times. So mixing the dough by hand goes really quickly. Throw it in the fridge for half an hour, remix it by hand again with extra oil in it, do that 2 more times. So it takes a little bit of prep work, but nothing that I'm sitting there for half an hour or 45 minutes working in the kitchen. Each step only takes about 10 or 15 minutes. So it's not a whole lot of time altogether, you just have to do a little time management. Then, once I've got it thoroughly mixed and it's all cooled down to the refrigerator temperature, I can just leave it set there for the next 12 hours. 12 hours go by, 8 to 12 hours I should say, because typically I'll do this in the evening before I go to bed, and then in the next morning I will go down and punch it down. The dough is starting to rise. It doesn't rise nearly as fast as it does on the counter, but it will start to rise in the fridge. So you do want to keep an eye on it, but just every 8 hours check on it. Punch it down, mix in some more oil. You really want this dough to be able to soak up the oil because that's what's going to give it most of its flavor when you actually cook it. So you can do that for overnight, would probably work okay. If you like the flavor of the yeast risen dough, the longer you leave it in the fridge, the longer the dough will have, or the yeast will have a chance to work in the dough and develop more flavor. So I will typically let it do at least 24 hours, sometimes up to 3 days. Wow. The dough I made here, I did one batch on Wednesday night and the other batch on Thursday morning. So both batches have been in the fridge for a little over 2 days. So it should have a little bit more yeast flavor than if I just did it overnight by itself. Another benefit of doing it this way is this is very kid-friendly. You take it out of the fridge and you're ready to cook it. I just spread it on a piece of parchment paper, put it on my baking sheet, and then I will just hand spread it with my fingers. And the kids would probably love this part. I don't have kids, but I'm imagining they would because I enjoy it and I'm still a kid. So once I get it spread out to about the thickness and size that I want, then I'll start to put my toppings on. And for today, I made 3 different toppings. I made 4 of them, but only 3 toppings. So I kept it really simple. I added olive oil to one of them and put in some rosemary, fresh rosemary. So that's going to be the first one that you see. I made a homemade pesto on the other, and again, I kept it really simple. It's just a little bit of basil, a little bit of spinach, olive oil, water, and I had to be concerned about nut allergies. Typically, we'll put pine nuts in pesto. Sometimes people put walnuts in pesto, a little cheaper, and you get a slightly different flavor. For today's pesto, I went with sunflower seeds. Technically, sunflower seeds are a seed and not a nut. Most people who are allergic to nuts are not allergic to sunflower seeds, but you'll want to make that decision for yourself. So the pesto sauce doesn't have any tree nuts in it, but it does have sunflower seeds in it. So be aware of that if you're nut sensitive. And for the other 2, I basically roasted up some small cherry tomatoes and grape tomatoes with some bell peppers, sweet peppers. I did orange and yellow this time to go with the red of the tomatoes. So it's basically just roasted cherry tomatoes, chopped up sweet peppers. I roast those for about 10 or 15 minutes in the oven beforehand because I want them to get partially cooked. But I don't want to completely cook them as I would if I was going to serve them, because once I put them back on the dough, they're going to go in the oven again, and I don't want them to completely dry out when they're in the oven. I want them to be partially dry because I don't want all that moisture to soak into the dough when I first put it in the oven, but I want them to be partially undercooked so that they will cook with the dough in the final stage of cooking. So, any questions? Yep.
When you put the dough in the refrigerator, do you cover it?
Yes. So I had to put it in 3 bowls. Typically, I have 1 bowl that has a glass lid on it, and that's what I'll use when I do my refrigerator if I'm making it for myself. Since I had to make effectively 4 batches, I had to bring out some other bowls, and I covered those with saran wrap. Oh, okay. The good news is, if you put a liberal coating of oil on the top surface of the oil or the dough, that will help keep it from drying out. But I also put the saran wrap on it for 2 reasons. Keeps it a little, the moisture trapped inside the bowl so it doesn't dry out nearly as well. and you don't have to worry about dust or anything else from the fridge falling into your dough. So, yep.
What type of flour? Using all-purpose, bread flour?
I've made it with both. The batch I made today, I've made with bread flour just because it gives a little bit more strength. But I've made it with just general purpose flour, and I didn't really notice a difference. I mean, the texture might be slightly different, but since this is such a wet dough anyway, you're not going to get that nice bready texture that you normally would. Yep. Good question. I actually used slightly chilled water. There is some people who say that you should always refrigerate the water if you're going to do it. That way the yeast won't start reacting right away. But I'm not too concerned about that. I'm going to rely on the temperature of the refrigerator itself. In the first 5 minutes, it's probably not going to start rising, so it's not a major concern.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming this morning. As you all know, as they sit and make their homemade pizza dough, that's not me. So I buy already made pizza dough. So the one I have used for the spinach and artichoke pizza was, what is it? Mama Mary's. Okay? And it comes with two pre-made crust in there, so it was perfect. I tried this recipe because I bought some artichoke hearts, and it's like, what am I going to do with some artichoke hearts? So I kind of just was perusing Pinterest and just kind of going through some different options and found this. And it's without a sauce. So this was a nice, easy one. So I've already kind of put them together, but I can walk you through it. It's just a matter of, I've got my stone, my pizza stone, which I can show you when it's done. I had that preheating, so it's nice and warm. And then I brushed my pre-made dough with olive oil. And last night I took it's the garlic, so I chopped up some garlic, minced it up, and then I used some minced garlic as well, just in the pan with the olive oil. Threw in 3 cups of spinach, cut up my artichoke hearts, just kind of got it all warm. And I did it twice because I made 2 pizzas, and I threw it all together last night. So all I had to do today, after I brushed on my olive oil, is put that mixture down over my mozzarella cheese. My single layer of mozzarella cheese is over the olive oil. Then I put on the spinach, artichoke, garlic mixture, threw some Parmesan cheese on top, threw a little bit of kosher sauce, just sprinkle that on, and you bake it for 10 minutes at 425. So nice and simple, because that's what we know I'm all about. So that's what you're going to have here for that one. Any questions on that one before I throw out my fruit pizza? Because that was an easy one to do too. I use the shredded mozzarella and then the shredded Parmesan, which of course you can always, you can buy your own and cut it yourself and do that, and that would probably be even better. But again, that's way more work than I'm going to do. I am quick and easy. All right. The other pizza I did was a dessert, a fruit pizza. So here is my fruit pizza. Again, nothing difficult about this one. My crust was sugar cookies. And all I did was buy that pre-made Pillsbury sugar cookie dough mix, patted it down. This is a double batch. My mom and aunt were in town a couple weeks ago because I hadn't made it, and I'm like, you guys get to be my guinea pigs. So it was super simple. You pat it down, bake the cookie dough for 10, 15 minutes, just so you have the golden edge, the golden edge on the edges. And then while that is baking, the cream, it's half a block of cream cheese, so the 4 ounces. It is an 8-ounce container of Cool Whip, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and a teaspoon of vanilla. So mix that together, but the key is making sure your cream cheese is room temperature, so it's easy to mix in there. You don't have the big lumps. Mix that all together, let that sit, and then after your cookie's done, you just pull it out and let it cool. So probably the most time-consuming part of the whole thing is cutting up your fruit. I did, like the strawberries, I cut really small. I use canned mandarin, oranges. Blueberries are obviously easy. I halved my grapes. And any fruit you want goes. I use canned pineapple just because it was easier to use this time. But if you like certain other, whatever fruit you want, they talked about kiwi, and I was like, oh, but I don't want to buy 6 kiwi because they didn't have it just single. If you like mango, you can do like the red and blue, like you could just do strawberries and blueberries. If you wanted, like 4th of July, do the flag. At Christmas, if you just want to use, the greens, whatever you want to do, you can go at it. They talked about toasted coconut as an option on top. My husband doesn't like coconut, so we stepped away from that one. Oops, let me pause for a minute. I got to pull out my other pizza. Yes?
Do you use frozen blueberries, or is that going to be too watery?
I think too watery, because one of the things they did mention is if you use the canned fruit is like patting it dry, because it'll get into that. So I drained everything, rinsed everything off, like my strawberries, rinsed them off, then cut them and then just set them on a paper towel. And I did the same, like the mandarin oranges, put them in the strainer and then put them on a paper towel so they would all dry out. So that was the big thing. Raspberries, anything the fruit piece was awesome. Like if you want to cut up bananas right beforehand, whatever color, whatever, fruit is your choice. That was a nice, easy piece to do. So that was one I thought was really good. And the topping, the icing, whatever, is light enough with the whipped cream that you don't feel like you're, all the sugar in the icing, on a total like Christmas cookie or whatever. So it went over really well. It was a good dessert. My mom and aunt were here for 3 days. It was gone.
So one of the things that's nice is, if you haven't noticed, we all kind of have our thing. Suzanne kind of does a semi-homemade. Willard's bringing, his experience from all over the world, which is kind of cool. And I'm more technical, so I like to do, like especially with baking, I do everything by grams. By the way, we'll go over the stuff in the book because I believe I put it in gram. No, I did actually convert it for you guys. Oh, awesome. I thought I was going to have to convert it for you. Usually when I bake, I do it by grams. I weigh everything. I'm a little bit more technical like that. So the first thing we're going to tackle today is going to be Detroit style pizza. It's on page 8 in your book. So a couple of things on this one. It's not hard. When you go to do Detroit style pizza, if you get on that web thing, right, the internet, the World Wide Web, they're going to try and sell you what's called a Lloyd's Detroit style pizza pan. It's a blue steel pan. Does anybody understand, does anybody know how this whole thing came to be? I'll give you the short version. There was some, I don't know the exact details, but as it goes, that one of the automakers went out of business in Detroit. They had these blue steel pans laying all over the place that held all the nuts, the bolts, the parts that went on the cars in the assembly line. So now the company went defunct. Somebody's got this great idea, went in there and bought pans, cleaned them all up, decided, hey, let's bake pizza in these. So, okay, that's what they did. And they found it made some of the best pizza that was ever invented. So, of course, they want you to make this at home. And this company called Lloyd's has made these pans. You can get them, it's in your book on the inside front cover. I want to say it's anywhere from like $30 to $60 for this special pan. I know you all want to run out and get one, so, don't leave just yet. I don't have no $30 to $60 to spend on a one-trick pony. So, I went to the Wally World, that's Walmart, okay? And this is what I did the first one. It's a non-stick cake pan. It's a 9 by 13 basically. It's, ready for this? Steel. It's non-stick. It was less than $5. I like the dark color too because this will attract more heat than a light colored pan. So if you're in the market for you do need a pan like this, go to Walmart. Now, I went Monday to get more of these because I knew we had about 75, 80 people signed up. And I thought, huh, this ain't going to feed no 80 people. So not unless we all did the South Beach size, you know, like this 1 inch square. So I went to go buy a few more of these. Well, they were out. Okay. Not a problem. Look on the counter. They have this. I can't show you what's, there's actually dough in here because it would just fall over on the counter. This is what I bought, was 2 of these. This is, yes, this is the non-stick jumbo roaster. This is 12.7 by 17.2, if you want to be exact on the measurements. I bought 2 of these. So that's what we're going to do today for the Detroit style pizza. If you're home, obviously one of these will get it done. You wait till they get them back in stock. Maybe they already are, I don't know. But this is what I got. So I guess if I have unexpected guests come over, we can have lots of pizza. So this is kind of similar to what Willard was talking about as far as this dough was put together last night, so it's going to get lots of flavor. I actually put it in the refrigerator overnight. Patted it in the pan last night, put some plastic wrap on it and forgot about it on purpose. Got up this morning at 8 o'clock, pulled it out of the fridge, drove to work with this, which was interesting. If you've never driven in the car with focaccia dough in a pan that's been liquored with oil, when you stop, the dough goes like this. When you step on the gas, the dough goes like this. So eventually it leveled itself back out. If you're going to take this to a party, it might get a little interesting. But anyway. So on page 8, you can see it's basically got your basic 4, right? Bread flour, instant yeast, salt, and water. Now, if you're going to be doing the overnight rest, like I just mentioned, this calls for 1.5 teaspoons for this size of yeast. That's the recipe you have is for this, not for this. I actually doubled it for this, and if you do one, you need to make a bigger one. If you're going to do that, instead of the 1.5 teaspoon, I might put in like a 1/2 teaspoon of yeast. You want to slow it down, like Willard was talking to you earlier about, so it just doesn't go crazy in the fridge. And then, because the flour is the fuel for yeast. That's the whole thing. You want to kind of slow it down and let it get some flavor. As far as the flour, usually I'd say use whatever you got, but when it comes to, for me, for pizza, bread, I do spend the good stuff and I get the King Arthur bread flour. It comes in the blue bag. You can get this at Walmart and get it at Publix. It's got one of the higher protein content, so it will help hold everything together. King Arthur also makes an all-purpose flour. I shouldn't say this, but I don't use it because I don't like it because it's got too much protein in it for my liking for a muffin or a cookie. I think it's just a little bit too chewy. So, like I said, I use the gold medal or something like that. It's got a little bit less protein in it. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. All right, so for the Detroit style pizza, you're going to put some oil in the bottom of your pan. You're going to take the dough. Now, I did this in a KitchenAid. The minute it comes out of the KitchenAid, you want to give it a good hour rest on your counter. After that, you're going to try and pat it in the pan. What's going to happen is you're going to pat it out and the dough's going to go, And then you're going to pat it out and it's going to go, And then you're going to want to throw the dough out. Give it 15 minutes. Give it another little massage. It'll go a little bit longer. Give it another 15 minutes. Hit it again. Eventually, you'll get it till it's almost to the entire shape of the pan. You just need to give it a minute. That gluten's got to relax a little bit. And then eventually, when it finally does, like right now, it's filled the entire pan. And it's pretty jiggly. I'm sorry?
How long do you have to do every 15 minutes?
Until I did it for 30 minutes. So 15 minutes, then 15 to 30 minutes. I did it again, then I just kind of left it. So, and I didn't touch it this morning, barely. Obviously, once it was all scrunched up on one side of the pan because somebody stopped in front of me. Other than that, it was fine. Not too bad, though. All right, so anyway, I wanted to mention about these pans. They are steel, they're non-stick. Because here's the thing with the Detroit-style pizza, too, is everybody talks about this Frico. Yeah, that's what I said. Who's Frico? Does anybody know what that is? No? Yes, cheese. cheese around the edge that's burnt on purpose. So, hence why you want the nonstick pan. You try this without a nonstick pan, you're going to be saying words that you probably shouldn't be, because they're going to be stuck. So these are brand new pans, so we should not have a problem. Now you do this a little bit differently. I like to put a little garlic and onion powder on pizza just to give it a little extra zip, because I find, now we are using the run-of-the-mill Walmart pizza sauce. Nothing special here. So I'm just going to give this a little quick stir, because this has been sitting. I thought Suzanne and Willard were going to need sauce, so we bought like 7 of these jars. Oh yeah, we got pizza party, all right. Nobody tell the boss. That's the only thing. It'll get used up. Okay, so this is granulated garlic and granulated onion powder. It's not, I shouldn't say powder, it's granulated. It's not like a powder, but it's not like a bigger piece. It's been ground to a different size. So I think you get a little bit extra flavor out of it. We're all going to be eating the same thing, so we don't have to worry about if somebody smells like garlic or onions today. So I'm just going to throw some of this on here. We got the oven is preheated to 500, lowest shelf. You want this as close to the heat as possible. Oh, you think 500's? Wait till we get to the other one. This 500's nothing. All right, so we've got this on here. Now, with Detroit style, you kind of have to build this a little bit differently. How many people have made Detroit style pizza? Really? Wow, all right. How many people have been to Detroit? Okay, it's nice to see the 3 of you are here. Okay, now, so in the directions, basically you're going to, when you go to build this, you're kind of going to build it backwards. So we're going to start with pepperoni. I'm going to try and do this. I did wash my hands. They're all clean, but just to try to be extra careful here. So this is going to go on the bottom. And we just got the run-of-the-mill pepperoni the boss picked up. So I'm just going to throw this on here real quick like. I say that when I'm trying to fill a 17-inch pan real quick like, right? All right, so we're just going to chuck some of this on here. All right. So while I'm doing this, let me explain kind of how the whole pizza thing got started for me. Actually, when I was a kid going to high school, a friend of mine, we'd go to his house Friday nights, every Friday night, and we had pizza party. And his mother would go and get the frozen bread dough, and she'd thaw it out a few days before, and then us kids would make pizza, and that's what we had for dinner that night. And gave them a chance to have a night off from cooking, gave us something to do. So if you do have kids, grandkids, this might be a cool project for them to do. So now I'm an adult, and my wife and I, we obviously like pizza, so we decided, all right, we're going to go to one of the local fancy pizza places, and we ordered a large pizza and it had 2 or 3 toppings on it. We each had soft drinks. We did not order beer or anything like that. By the time with a tip and everything, I was out of there for about 40 bucks. I had a stroke. And I said, wait a minute, we just had a pizza and 2 drinks, 40 bucks. Now, I'm not cheap, but I'm not stupid, okay? So I said, I told my wife, I said, we're not doing this again. She goes, okay. So that's what led me down the whole New York style Detroit. Well, this was something newer I've just kind of started playing with, but the New York style pizza is something that, I lived in upstate New York, so we didn't have New York City pizza, but it was, believe it or not, there's some pizza places up in upper state New York. By the way, New York's a really big state. It's not just this big with a little funny looking island on the end of it, okay? So there's actually pizzerias up there that will ship the water from New York City up there to make their pizza, and that's how they get around it, try to give you the authentic flavor. So that's kind of cool. So that's what led me down to try to figure out the whole New York style pizza, and I think we've gotten pretty close. I did the cost analysis on it for anybody that's interested. I'd say this pizza you're going to be into it for maybe about $6. The ones that we're going to do in a minute, I'm going to show you the actual dough balls. I think I calculated that to be around $2.75 a piece. That's the dough, the cheese, the sauce, the pepperoni, everything. Cheese, right? so we're just going to throw some on this, but you want to put some on the very edge, because this is a part that's going to burn on purpose. I know that sounds bad. Usually you don't want stuff to burn. Frico. It's going to Frico. That sounds better than burn, right? All right, so we're going to do this guy here. We're just going to, we got a big budget for this show because we got the great friends helping us out. So we had 15 pounds of cheese come to us. Not quite, well, we probably had 7 pounds we actually got. Okay, so I'm going to, and what's nice about this kind of pizza is it's done in this pan, so you don't have to worry about getting it out of here, which can be a problem. Has anybody ever tried the other pizzas that you put on one of these things? Yes? Did you have to reach for the Excedrin afterwards? We're going to show you some tips on if you want to do it the traditional pizza way. All right. Now here's the thing, if you're going to do pizza, that's awesome. Have a pizza party, invite the neighbors, your friends, your family. We did that once. I tried to explain to them, and it was on this kind of, the other kind of pizza, not this one. I said, please do not overload the pizza. So what did they do? They were like two kids in a candy store, put everything in the kitchen sink on it. Guess what happened? Dough didn't cook. So if you like raw pizza, that's one way to get it done. All right, so I'm just kind of, we're just sprinkling some cheese on there. It may look like a lot, but again, this is a big pizza. Okay, now we're going to hold to Detroit standards. If you've never, is anybody, nobody said they had a Detroit style pizza before, right? Yeah. Yes, somebody has? Okay, so then you know. Does anybody, other than since you've had it, then you know. Anybody knows how you put the sauce on?
No.
Right, 3 strips. Right, like, so, actually we could probably speed this up a little bit. It's not like we don't have any sauce. Does anybody know why we do 3 strips? It's Detroit style pizza, auto industry. This is the racing stripes. Okay? It's the way it was explained to me. So if it's not right, then I was told wrong, but this is, don't blame it on me. I was told because of the racing stripes. So if you got one of those fast sports cars and you got a stripe on this, if it doesn't, I'll go out there and I'll put some pizza sauce down the center of the hood in the trunk for you. Let's see. All right, this isn't going to be the most perfect stripes we got going here, but we're going to call this good. So this does not have a lot of sauce on it. There we go. Okay, we're going to throw it there. We already sanitized the counter. I'm not worried about that. 500, bottom oven, 10 minutes. So this is, okay, I'm going to set my timer before I forget, or else when the smoke comes out, then we know we're getting close. And I'm going to do it for 5 minutes. So 5 minutes, then that way I can rotate it. I don't know about this oven, but I know my home oven is not, doesn't bake real even. So if you're in that category, you may want to rotate your pizza halfway through. All right, we're just going to throw this here for right now. Okay, so we cannot forget about the pizza. Pizza. So while that's doing its thing, we're going to go to page 7, New York style pizza. This is where it's really going to get fun. Try to get my workspace kind of cleaned up here. New York style. This I can actually show you. This was put in the fridge Wednesday night. I made it up, made the balls, stuck it in the fridge Wednesday night, forgot about it on purpose. So it's had about, what, 2.5, 3 days to chill out or to do its thing. Pulled it out this morning. It's at room temp. So what's nice about these is that you can actually do all this stuff ahead of time. If you're going to have a party, or if you got family coming, I got family come down from New York, and I said, all right, New York is in the rest of the state, not the little, okay? And I'll say, is there anything that you guys want? They said, can we do pizza? Sure, why not? So, and again, it's cheap, so if you got family that's coming and you're looking for something for them to do, why not? Put them to work. I like this kind of container. You could use a baking dish if you've got one, so that way you can put cling film on top, and then that way it will not touch the dough. This is really sticky dough. It's not as bad as the focaccia dough or the Detroit style or the focaccia dough like he was talking about. You try to mix and just oozes all over. So this you can actually manipulate with your hands. If you are going to do this, there's a couple things you're going to need. Nothing too expensive. I would highly recommend you get one of these. It's a dough scraper. You know, maybe Amazon, maybe $1. Nothing too expensive. They may even have these at the dollar store. I'm not sure. I like this. This is in your book, I believe. I can't remember the pricing on it. It's on the inside front cover. We've had this for about 20 years. You buy it once, you got it for life. Unless you need to burn it up and use it for wood down here to stay warm. But I don't think we'll have that problem. Let's see, what else? I think that's about it. Oh, to make this work, I do use, it's also on the inside cover of your pamphlet, it's the cast iron pizza pan from Lodge. It's about $35-ish. That I would recommend if you're looking to do not only pizza, I bake my pies on it. I bake other bread on it. So for example, right now I'm playing around with pumpkin pie recipes for next month. And if you've ever had an issue with a soggy bottom and you don't want to deal with par baking a crust, I take the entire pumpkin pie that's not been par baked, stick it on that plate. Let me tell you, the bottom cooks all the way through. Not a problem. I can even put my cinnamon rolls in there on that plate. So it's not just like you're buying it just for pizza. That's ideally what it's used for, but you can use it for other things. So to me, that's a good investment. It's cast iron, so it's going to last you forever. Question?
Yeah, so I was just wondering, how come you don't have a pizza stone here listed?
So why not the pizza stone? Good question. 2 reasons. I had a pizza stone, had it for a while, it cracked. So then I said, okay, am I going to spend whatever money for a pizza stone again? Well, let me see what else they got. I actually have what's called a baking steel at the house. I didn't bring it today because it's 40 pounds. It's a 1/2-inch steel plate. So this is kind of a nice in-between. It's metal, so it's going to conduct heat to the dough a lot more efficient than a stone will, and this is never going to crack. So like for example, I take my pies out of the freezer that have been frozen, especially fruit pies. Sounds like the derrick of the oil rig's coming down. All right, let's get this rotated. We're just going to rotate this real quick. All right, we'll give that another 5 minutes. You can always bake something more, you just can't unbake it, right? So again, that radiates heat better with that metal. So like with when I freeze my fruit pies, I bake them right from the freezer. So I put them in a metal pie plate and I stick them on there and then they bake like nobody's business. Question? Timer?
You don't need a timer for the bottom? Sorry, is that?
Yeah, I already did, thank you. So there you go. See, somebody was doing their homework. Yeah, I set it for 5 minutes. Awesome, thank you. So it's not black yet, but we're getting there. So yeah, we're all in this together because you guys got to eat it. If it's black, guess what? All right, yeah, so it's got about 3 minutes to go on that. And then, like I say, we'll check it. So if it needs a few more minutes, it needs a few more minutes. You can't really burn pizza dough. I mean, it's more or less the toppings that we're worried about. So let's do this. Let me kind of explain how we're going to do this while that's finishing up, because once you start this, you kind of have to do it. You can't just stop. So what we're going to do is you got to get this gooey mess onto here and in there. Now, is anybody, if you've not tried this, what can happen is you say, okay, I put this on here, you spread it out, you got your dough, you got the pizza, you put all the stuff on it, and you go to stick it in there, it's stuck. Now what? Now you fold it over and make a calzone, I guess, I don't know, right? So that's how you fix that. The secret to getting your dough off of the peel, a lot of people will tell you flour, exactly. Somebody said it. Right here, cornmeal. This acts like ball bearings. Now, what's going to happen is when we get ready to take the dough out of here, we're actually going to coat it in flour on the outside first. And that's going to make it so we can stretch it. And then we're going to put cornmeal on there, and we're going to make sure we can shimmy it before we do anything else. Then we're going to put the toppings on it. We're going to shimmy it to make sure it's still moving. So then we get ready to go here, it's done. You're not like, oh, whoops, finding out at the 11th hour that it's stuck. So that's kind of the plan. Now, when you're doing this, you kind of want to do it. You don't want to just like get the dough stuck on the board and then go, whoops. Oh, phone call. No. Whoever it is, they can wait. Because once it gets on there, it's starting to absorb moisture and all this. You want to get it, you don't want to spend all day doing this. You got some time, but again, that's why I've not started this, because we got to deal with this. So this is actually starting to brown, so that's good. It may need a couple extra minutes. In the book, let me see here. I think I've got down 12 to 15 minutes. All right, so we'll give it a couple extra minutes. As far as the recipe goes for the New York style pizza, you got your water, your bread flour, your yeast. Now again, if you're going to do the overnight rise, like I kind of recommend, I would take the yeast down to maybe a 1/4 teaspoon. And then, because it's going to be in the fridge, yeast is going to continue to multiply. You got a little bit of olive oil in there to keep it nice and so it doesn't turn into a cracker. And a little bit of sugar, that's for browning, that's not necessarily for sweetness. And salt, of course, for flavor. All right, there we go. Yes, I know, stop. Okay, let's check on our pizza. We're going to give it like another 2 minutes. Like I said, we can always bake it longer. There, did you see how that steam come out of there? So, yeah, you don't want to keep your face in there because it'll be a bad day for you. This is already cool. The other thing is when you're working with this, you want to make sure that you have a place where you're going to offload all this stuff, right?
And your
That's-
gloves?
I'm sorry?
Velcro, are those I'm not Velcro, but Teflon?
Sure. Honestly, don't know. I think they're like a high temp silicone. I got a bad burn on the grill one time right here with a rotisserie spit at 600 degrees. That was no fun. So after that, if you want, I got good old-fashioned welding gloves. So I got these off Amazon, and when you put these on, let's set our timer for 2 minutes. It's all right. So it comes up a little bit longer, so that might be a good option for you if you need them. I brought them today just because I knew we were going to be working with high heat. So the question, what was the difference between the steel in the oven and then this one here? This is actually Suzanne's. So what is this?
That's the Pampered Chef Pizza Stone.
Pampered Chef's Pizza Stone. So this is an actual stone. Yep, no, good question. So looks like it's well loved. The more you use this stuff, the more non-stick it gets, which is good. So the same thing with cast iron. I've had this and I've baked, I don't know how many pizzas on it. And also bread. If anybody wants to do artisan bread, you can stick it in there. You can put a bowl on top and all of a sudden you've got yourself basically a little mini bakery oven. All right, it's getting there. I'd say in about this next 2 minutes, it's going to be. Any questions while we're kind of waiting on this for the next minute or so?
The yeast, it's the powdered yeast in the.
Yep, the plain old powdered yeast you get in the packets, or I go to.
Powdered, it says double action, all these
I don't use the rapid rye yeast. I use plain instant yeast. I find because a lot of the bread baking I do, I want to purposely slow it down for more flavor. So I don't use the rapid ryes. I use just the plain rapid yeast. And if any of you've got like a Sam's membership or BJ's or one of those, you can get a 2-pack thing of yeast for like $5. Maybe it's $6 now. It's been a while. Take it, throw some of it in the freezer. It'll last a while. Freeze it, yep. And then when you need some, pull it out. You could probably freeze it up to a year. Yeah. And a lot of these recipes, you only need a 1/4 teaspoon. You don't need a lot. So, yeah, when we had that whole thing going on about the yeast shortage, if you buy some and throw it in the freezer, you could sell it for, $20 a teaspoon. Yeah, like toilet paper, right?
I'm so glad I asked.
Yeah, so, all right. I think we're going to call this one good, so I can show you guys what it looks like. If any of you are doing like bread at home, I've given up with trying to worry about overcooking it because it's going to hit 212 anyway, which is the boiling point of the water. I would bake it to the brownness that you guys like. So, there, did you see all that steam? There's a lot of water in that dough. All right. Yeah, there you go. So we got one. All right, so what we're going to do is I'll show you one of these, and then we're going to do that one, and then we'll just start cranking, and you guys won't have to listen to me drone on here. Then if anybody else wants to talk about what they brought in, by all means, we'll do that. So give this a few minutes to cool. Let me double check our recipe just to make sure. Yeah, we're going to give that about 10 minutes to rest. And that's why I brought this thing. We're going to take this, go into here, and then pull the entire thing out. And hopefully, it's going to be nice and crispy on the bottom. So, hence the high heat. Okay, now we're going to play with the other one real quick. I'm going to get my workspace ready because we've already talked. Now it's just a matter of doing it because we've already talked about everything. We sanitized the counter already, okay? I'll wash my hands just one more time. Okay, it's good to have all your tools laid out. So, there's our pizza sauce, cheese, and then we'll just do pepperoni. Well, let's do sausage. Somebody brought that in. Let's use that. We got this here. Yeah, we can do bacon too if you guys want. Okay, first things first. You got your workspace. I'm just going to take some of this. Let me try and move this. So I realize you guys try to make so you guys can see. Okay. We'll make this work. So throw this out. I love this counter. I wish I had this at the house. Okay. We're going to take some flour. We're going to flour our discs here. One of them anyway. So far so good? Okay. This thing. You cut down the center because they fuse together. Boy, I sure hope this works out now. I put the hype in all this, right? It better work. Yeah, no pressure. Everybody's watching. This side's floured. Goes on the counter. More flour. We haven't done anything too hard yet, right? This is actually the hardest part. Don't be afraid to use flour. All right, now, it was like this. The top is on the bottom. Now it's right side up, right? Sure, okay. So what you can do, you want to kind of go from the middle out because you want that lip around the edge, right? Like if you're in a regular pizza shop. If I tossed it, we would have nothing to eat. Did anybody work in a pizza shop? Oh, I can't volunteer anybody.
I grew up next to one, that's why I'm
Oh, okay. So I'm going to do this, because this is my tossing, okay? So you can feel it's that gluten in there. All right. Cornmeal. See, we're kind of moving. I should add this over here. Take some of this, throw it right on here. Don't be afraid to use some. It's cheap. We're not eating at one of those fancy pizza places that's going to charge you $300 for a pizza. All right? So, you guys probably can't see, but there's bubbles in this dough. That's the yeast doing its thing, okay? Don't worry, it's not like some kind of... Now, here's test number 1. Okay, we're good, right? All right. Now, I tell people don't get super crazy with the sauce on here. Now that I said that, right? No. And you can make this all your own, so maybe you might not like tomato sauce. You might like to put some Alfredo sauce on here with some chicken. That would be good. So why not? All right, so we're going to kind of go like so. Can't forget this because, you know, we're all friends here. Hey, you guys keep showing up to this program. It's your fault. You got to put up with my bad jokes. All right, so there you go. Cheese is here. All right, I washed my hands, right? You guys saw that. So we're going to go with this. You notice we're moving right along here. We don't want to like be fiddly farting around. All right, and again, you can mix whatever cheeses you guys like. Recently, I've kind of taken a liking to Monterey Jack. So, all right. So thank you for bringing in some of the toppings. That's always helpful. This is sausage that somebody brought in. So thank you for that. We'll make some different ones once we get going here. This is just kind of to show you. Test number 2, right? Okay, we're still good. Watch the oven. All right. Don't forget your timer. So we're going to go for 5 minutes. And then what we're going to, actually I shouldn't have done that. We're going to stick this here. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to take the tongs. I'm going to rotate it so it cooks evenly. Then I'm going to yank it out of there and put it on here. Slide it on here. We're going to cut it and then serve it. Make sense? Nothing too exciting, right? So yeah, I know this is kind of an investment, but I forgot how much this, what is it in the book? 20-ish dollars? Okay, so, you know, it might be a good thing to have for other stuff too. Any questions so far?
Each disc was one recipe?
Yes.
Okay, so you
Yep.
did it 4 times.
Actually did it 10 times. We got 10 balls of dough because there's 4 in there and we got 6 here. We were expecting 80 people, so 8 slices, you know. We're going to have a lot of pizza. So I can't think of anything else really, so. Yeah, just some cornmeal. We'll clean it up afterwards, not a big deal. Great question. The question was, can you freeze the dough balls? Yes. Freeze them, and then when you want them, just refrigerate them, let them defrost in the fridge overnight, and then let them come up to room temp when you actually want to bake them. Now, if you do want this pizza, the cast iron pizza plate, and you want one in town, do you know where you get one? There might be 2 places. I know there's one place, definitely. The first place could be Walmart. The second place that will have it, my wife and I had to make a trip up to Michigan not too long ago, and we ate at the Cracker Barrels on the way up and on the way back. Cracker Barrel carries a lot of Lodge cast iron stuff, and they actually have the pizza plates. Theirs don't have the lip on them like anymore like this one does. So it's a little bit nicer. So you might be able to go there and get one. The other thing I would recommend with a pizza, I've tried both the high moisture mozzarella and the low moisture mozzarella. Try them both. I tend to gear more towards the lower moisture, just because then it doesn't have to burn that off to actually start browning. But all right, let's see what we got here. I think this is about done. There. So that's not too bad. So it took maybe, what, 7 minutes in the oven-ish? And now we're going to just keep cranking at this point. So I'll go ahead and cut this. Oh, we got to get this guy out of here. That's been 15 minutes. So let's see if we can get that out. That'll be the next thing. I'm looking for here's one. You guys probably can't hear that, but it's crispy. The other thing is when you look at the bottom, you're looking for this like spotting. They call it leopard spotting in the pizza industry.
Is that cornmeal?
No, that's actually the pizza steel that does that. The steel, the heat of it. All right, so we got this one. And now, thank you for, I forget who donated the parchment. Somebody brought that into us. We are using it. Now comes the fun part. Don't use anything metal on this because then it's going to ruin your pan. Oh, yeah, this is easy. Now that I said that, I just need to get this away from the edge. Oh, get back here. Yep, done. There we go. So that's it.
Hungry? I'm going to be very short because I'm hungry smelling this and seeing all this beautiful food here. I made an oldie but a goldie veggie appetizer pizza. Very easy. It takes it's on page 9 of your booklet. 1 can refrigerated crescent dough rolls, a half a block of cream cheese, half a cup of sour cream, 1 teaspoon of French dill, 1 crushed dill, 1 teaspoon of fresh chives, salt and pepper to taste, and assorted vegetables, whatever vegetables you like. I used broccoli, different colored sweet pepper, cucumbers, and some carrots. I don't like onion, fresh onion. It doesn't like me, so I didn't put onion on it. And I used the alternate recipe. I did not use the fresh dill and chives. I used the ranch dip seasoning, 2 tablespoons in with the cream cheese and the sour cream. So it doesn't have the fresh herbs on it. And it looks like this.
I'm Tina. I made pizza rolls, and I subscribe to the Suzanne world where easy is good. And so these are just, you take pepperoni and mozzarella and you put it in the in the food processor, and just process it until it's in really tiny little pieces. And then you mix in some pizza sauce and whatever herbs and stuff that you would like to put in it to flavor it up however you want. And you want to put just enough pizza sauce so that it turns into a paste. You don't want it to be real runny because it'll run out if you do that. So it's like kind of a paste. And then you take wonton wrappers that are pre-made, and you put just a little spoon of the filling in it, wrap it up. You got to wet the sides of it to seal it. just wrap it up in a little packet and you throw it in the deep fryer and voila, pizza rolls. So that's it. And have some sauce to dip it in. That's all I know. Okay. Do you want me to talk about Aunt Diana's too? This is my friend Debbie brought this and she's shy. Her Aunt Diane had this recipe that they brought to all their family gatherings, and it is spaghetti. How do you say it? Pizzaghetti. Pizzaghetti. It's spaghetti mixed with like a egg and cheese mixture with the pasta, and then topped with sauce and whatever kind of pizza toppings that you want on top of it, and then cheese, and then baked in the oven. And it's an old family recipe of theirs, and so I'm sure it's delicious.